You know, there's a famous statue of a man sitting on a rock, hand on his chin, and what looks like a blank stare on his face. Anybody know the statue I'm talking about? Yep, it's called the Thinker. And yet, we make so little of thinking today. In fact, we mock it sometimes. Today's leadership truth number 4, I think it's pretty important, and that is thinking time is not wasted time. I was torn between that title and thinking time is not killing time. There are a lot of people who see another one thinking, contemplating. Maybe they're staring off into space, or it appears that they're staring at someone, but they're really not, because their focus is not what their eyes are taking in. Their focus is something going on inside their head. I've been there. I've been accused of staring at someone, and then when they call me on it, I literally have to shake my head and close my eyes a couple of times. I realized I was looking in their direction, but I wasn't looking at them. I was looking through them or past them, or not even aware. Now, the sad reality is we have so many mental distractions going on in our world today, and digital devices and that kind of stuff, that we often find ourselves off in another world. That's not what I mean by thinking. It is thinking, but that's not the kind of thinking that I'm thinking about. The kind of thinking that I'm thinking about is the kind of thinking that changes your life. Dr. Caroline Leaf talks about how our thinking process, our mind process, changes the shape and function of our physical brain, which directly impacts every nerve, every chemical, every cell in our human body. So our thinking, our mind, how we feel about that, thought plus feeling equals attitude, that process alone changes our brain and our physical body toward good health or bad health. James Allen, in his way early book, I believe it was in the early 1900s, said, as a man thinks, so is he. In fact, that's the name of his book, As a Man Thinks. You can get it on Amazon. I think I paid $3 for mine. It's about 60 pages. You can read the whole thing in an hour. But as a man thinks is such a critically important concept. And yet, thinking is not something that we do on a regular basis. We very seldom have time to think. I find myself guilty of this. You know, almost every major religion, Christianity, Hindu, Buddhism, in fact, the Buddhist monks are known best for it, Hare Krishnas as well, for their ability to meditate and focus on their meditation through almost anything. Their ability to go inside, to internalize, to contemplate, to think about themselves, to reflect on the decisions they've made, good and bad, to reflect on the events of the day, the week, the month, the year, their life. Their concentration level is so high. And they invest committed time to think. John Maxwell says in his book, Everyday Matters, that I do 5 things every day, and those 5 things are scheduled. He has a place in his office, in his home, called his thinking chair. And he doesn't do anything in that chair but think. He doesn't write in that chair. He doesn't counsel in that chair. He doesn't teach from that chair. He doesn't read in that chair. When he's in that chair, he's only there to think. And he's disciplined the surroundings, the environment, the conditions of where that chair is located to suit good thinking. He's also conditioned himself that when he sits in that chair, there's no other reason for being in that chair but to think. Now, I have to be honest and say the discipline level in my life, even when I have my quiet time and I have my conversation with my God every day, I have that conversation in the Spirit, I have that conversation in public. I know an executive pastor of a very large church who for decades has had his morning quiet time, the time when he studies the Bible, the time when he prays, the time when he thinks, at McDonald's. For decades. I have mine at Starbucks. I finish this program, I pack up what needs to be done in the house, and I go to Starbucks so that I'm not distracted by anything else. I'm less likely to lay back down and go to sleep before I go to work. I'm less likely to get involved in some other project that I can't finish before I have to go to work. So I go to Starbucks and I have my coffee and I do some reading, I do some writing, I do some posting, I do some thinking. In fact, if you follow this program, a lot of times you'll see I'm very active on Facebook and Twitter right after this program because I'm expressing all those things that I'm thinking about in my quiet time. Now, the irony is sometimes I allow that time to be so busy that the time to do nothing but think doesn't happen. And I can tell you this, it doesn't matter where you work or who you work for or how intelligent the people are you work for. If they walk into your office and see you, or walk into your cubicle and see you, or walk onto the floor where you work and see you thinking, it might cost you your job. Because we mock it. We mock thinking. How do we know? Well, because you hear phrases like, "What are you doing?" "I was thinking." "Oh, I thought I smelled smoke." Or "I thought I heard the gears grinding." Or "I thought you were just taking a nap." We mock the idea of settling ourselves, of resting for a moment, of allowing everything else to kind of slip away and just meditating on an idea, a notion, a genius idea that we may create into something fantastic. Dr. Leaf says it takes about 37 seconds for that, and Jack Canfield says this as well. In fact, in his book, Success Principles, he calls it the 37-second genius. From the time a new idea comes up, you've got about 37 seconds to focus your thinking toward that new idea, or that little protein in your brain, which can be measured on an MRI. If you took it out of your brain, you could put it on a scale and weigh it. That thought, that new idea has mass. It takes up physical real estate in your brain for about 37 seconds. If you don't focus on it at all, boop, it just pops, it goes away. And the juxtaposition of all the things going on in your life, the emotion that you had, the thing that you were experiencing, the idea that prompted that new thought, the opportunity for all those things to come together again is so rare and so unlikely that there's a chance that was $1 million idea and you let it slip away and it may never come back again. If you focus on that thought, though, and it's a negative thought, the more you focus on it, the bigger the thought grows, and after 37 seconds, it becomes permanent. And that permanent thought, as you're focusing on that thought, will begin to take up real estate in your brain. It will begin to draw in, just like a tree's roots draw nutrients out of the ground, it will draw in the various chemicals in your brain to allow itself to grow. And if it's a negative thought, if it's a harmful thought, the chemical process will begin to do damage to your physical body. I'm telling you, it's real stuff. If it's a positive thought, if it's a new idea, if it's a business invention, advention, you like that? It's an adventure and an invention all rolled into one. I just made it up. If it's a new business venture, if it's a new invention, if it's a new idea for a collaboration or an expansion of what you do, if you give it 37 seconds of focused thought, it could become brilliant. Take notes, write it down. Think on it as long as you can. Think about all the possibilities and the probabilities. And after you've thought on it for 2 or 3 minutes, it's now a permanent feature in your mind. You might need a post-it note as a recall to take you back to it until you've really spent time meditating on it. But once you've meditated on it, you have the ability to build it into something fantastic. Now, the challenge with most of us is we fear thinking because it's hard work. I think it was Einstein. I could be mistaken. I think it was Einstein who said most people realize that thinking is hard work, and that's why they don't do it. Most people realize thinking is hard work, and that's why they don't do it. But we also realize that as we think, we begin to see things in ourselves that we'd like to see changed. As we think, we begin to realize things need to change. As we think, we see opportunities that have slipped past us. As we think, we see opportunities that are coming toward us. As we think, we see relationships that are on the brink or have already gone bad. As we think, we see opportunities to fix relationships. And all of those require of us more thinking. And all of those require of us more work. And all of those require us to do something, to take action, to make our thinking worthwhile. In the 5 levels of leadership, John Maxwell says level number 3 is productivity. But he also says that all of our behavior is magnetism. What we do attracts others around us. And we may teach from what we know, but it's what we do that shapes who we really are. And who we are attracts people around us. So it's not what you tell people to do. You're not a tour guide. It's not what you instruct people to do. It's what you actually do. So if you want your team to be a thinking team, create for them space to be thinkers. Allow them time to think. Ask them to journal what they're thinking, especially as it's relative to why you have them on your team. If their job is graphic design and you look at their journal, and every time they're writing in their journal, every time they're taking time to think what's in their journal or what's on their notes or what's on their brainstorm whiteboard is Fantasy Island, you probably need to replace them as a graphic designer. If they're a software engineer and they're always thinking about recipes, you're probably not going to see a whole lot of engineering. What we think about shapes who we are. What we think about leads to what we do. Our mind drives our brain, drives our physical body. Our thinking drives our behavior, drives our habits, drives our who. But if we don't take time to think at all, if we see thinking as a waste of time, or if we see thinking as killing time, then the benefit which comes from thinking will be time lost. And that you can't get back. There's a quote that I shared on the screen. If you're watching on Facebook, if you're on the iTunes podcast, or if you're on YouTube, I will put it in the comment section below. I'm also going to share a link to the entire blog. It was a blog from the John Maxwell Company based around how successful people think. And so it's a quick outline of some of the core questions in this book. And there's a quote there that I think is very powerful, and that is asking the question honestly, can you change your life by thinking? And of course, the answer is yes. The distinguishing factor between people who are grandly successful and those who are not is taking time to think. It's not wasted time, and it's not killing time. Make sure that you're disciplined to prove that true, though. Don't say that you're taking thinking time and then just waste the time. Don't say that you're thinking when all you're doing is killing time. Make sure that you're disciplined about your thinking so that your thinking time can be valuable. I want to share this really quick little piece from you. This is How Successful People Think, page 75. And it just says, set aside time for reflection. This is one of the disciplines of thinking, one of the many disciplines of thinking. Set aside time for reflection. Greek philosopher Socrates observed, the unexamined life is not worth living. Wow. The unexamined life is not worth living. For most people, however, reflection and self-examination does not come naturally. It can be a fairly uncomfortable activity for a variety of reasons. They have a hard time staying focused. They find the process dull. They don't like spending a lot of time thinking about emotionally difficult issues. But if you don't carve out time for it, you are unlikely to do any reflective thinking. I wrote in the margins of my own notes, and I didn't date this. Yes, I did. October 10th of 2010. This is a key step to change. Create an exercise to practice it in a group setting. That's interesting. I haven't done that yet. Should read this book again more often. I want to encourage you, though. I want to challenge you to realize that time spent thinking is not time killed. Time spent thinking is not time wasted. But the difference between killing time and wasting time and investing time in thinking is the discipline that you apply to your thinking. I want to give you some good parameters for that. So I want you to come back and look in the description if you're on YouTube or the iTunes podcast. I want you to look in the comments if you're watching on Facebook. In about 20 minutes, I will upload the link, maybe even sooner than that. I will upload the link for the full blog written by the John Maxwell Company that has an outline of questions. If you will simply print that page out or write down those questions and think on the things that are on that list, he gives you some really good ideas. Again, you can pick up this little book right here. I think it was $10. I got it at the VA. You can pick up a little book like that and go through it and write down some questions and write down some thoughts. It will challenge you to do some really good thinking. If you want the bigger one, there's a fatter book. It's about 3 times the size of this, and it's called Thinking for a Change. And it really will help you to bring about change in your life. I do want you to be observant of people around you who might be thinking, though. Give them time to do that. Give them space to do that. Encourage your children to take time to think. We ask the question all the time, what were you thinking? And often we get the answer, nothing. That's a lazy mind. A lazy mind thinks nothing. You should be thinking about something all the time. It doesn't have to be stressful. It might be relaxing. It might be focused on the beach. It might be thinking about where you want to go for your next vacation and how you're going to get there. Let me tell you one other little trick real quick that you may or may not know. Did you know that I've told you this before, but you may not remember it, or maybe you're new to the program. The reticular activating system in the brain doesn't operate on words, it operates on images. But it also doesn't know the past from the future. And so when you put a picture, an image, a vision into the reticular activating system through your thinking process, the reticular activating system in your subconscious mind sees that as a problem to be solved. So if you're thinking about the vacation on the beach, if you're thinking about your family and your friends gathered around, you're thinking about where you're going to go and how you're going to get there and how you're going to set aside the money and blah, blah. That thinking process sets up a puzzle in the subconscious mind that the subconscious mind will go about the business of solving. Think about that for a minute. If you're thinking about how to take your business to the next level and you respond to yourself, I don't know, I don't have the answer for this, then you're right and you're done. You're stuck where you are and you will be stuck. But if you will take time to think on what it could be, what you want it to be, you'll find that your attitude and your vision are woven together in the reticular activating system of your brain. What you think about and how you feel about it will begin to become a part of your verbal and vocal expressions. And as that continues to happen, your subconscious mind is seeing that vision that's not yet true as something of a problem that it needs to solve. And you are well on your way to the next step. I hope you've enjoyed today's program. I really want you to ponder, to think, to take time to think what life could be next, what life should be next, what have I done wrong that I could fix, and what could I do better. Take time to think today. Thinking time is not wasted time. Thinking time is not killing time. It's a good investment in the who that you will become. I am J Loren Norris, and you've been watching Tell It Like It Is TV. Thanks for being here today. By the way, make sure that you go down there and click on the subscribe button so that you'll get a notification every time these live videos are on Facebook. If you're on YouTube, click on that subscribe button and you'll, again, get notifications. You do have to hit subscribe and then hit the little bell so that it will let you know, because these do start early every day at 6:20. I believe it takes a matter of hours before it shows up in the podcast, but if you're on iTunes podcast, you can actually download these into your iTunes and have them available on the go at any point. You don't have to log into YouTube or anything like that. Once you download them to your phone, they're ready to go with you. iTunes podcast, J Loren Norris, you can search my name and find it there, and then you'll have them on the go anywhere you want to go. I do want to encourage you, I haven't picked a date yet, but there will be a cutoff date where some of these leadership teaching lessons, like the leadership truths and the 9 attitudes of excellence and those kind of things, the 10 key elements of leadership success, those will be extracted from the regular podcast and things of that nature, and they will be subscription only or purchase for download. So while they're free, get as many of them as you want. Download as many of them as you want to your phone, to your iPad, to your computer. Share them as many times as you want while they're free. I haven't picked the date. When I do, I'll let you know what it is. But I want you to have access to as many of these teachings as you find important to you. You can go through them by title on iTunes. You go through them by title on YouTube. They're a little harder to find on Facebook, but they're all out there. This program is a little over a year old, and I've done it every day, Monday through Friday at 6:20 a.m. So I hope you find some good content here. Comment, share. We've had some great discussions with people who have had insights or thoughts about the video or questions about the video and how it applies to their life. I'm glad to answer those questions for you. So share those in the comments. As soon as I get them, I'll reply to them and provide whatever insight I can, or connect you with somebody who has greater insight than myself. Until then, I'll see you next time. God bless.